Welcome back to the Bryan Devore Connection. I'm your host, Bryan Devore. If you own a business, there are potential pitfalls, and there are some protections you can have to protect yourself from loss when it comes to your business. So here to talk to us today about those issues and how you can protect yourself is my friend, Raysan Benito. Raysan, thank you very much for coming today.
Bryan, it is a joy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So you and I have met sort of in the senior space, gotten to know each other a little bit, and I've really enjoyed learning a little bit more about what you do to help protect businesses. How did you kind of get into this line of work?
You know, it's one of those things where I think about the journey that brought me here. And in my experience beforehand, a lot of what I had done was very transactional. So you go, you sell a product or a service, and then you leave. But I found when I was talking to business owners that there was so much more opportunity to really serve them. And so what brought me here was the opportunity to truly serve and add value with these clients on an ongoing basis.
That's great. And so we want to talk about protecting your business from some of the issues that they may face. Let's first talk about what are some of the issues that businesses may face, whether they're aware of them or not.
Absolutely. So it's one of those things where I think about this concept of risk and risk management, particularly within organizations. And oftentimes I think the stereotype is just this slip, trip, and fall kind of old school mentality. But as the laws in California in particular are becoming increasingly more robust, safety and risk are so much more than just someone falling or tripping. There's right now, as it stands, there's actually this new law that's coming out around workplace violence prevention. And so employers must, not should, but must have a safe workplace for their employees.
Got it. So there's a lot that goes on, especially in California, I would think, because a lot of laws and a lot of businesses in California too. But these are some things that people probably aren't even aware of, that they need to have protections from. So what are some of the ways that businesses can protect themselves from some of these potential risks?
Absolutely. So oftentimes, because with insurance, it's one of those things where hopefully you never have to use it.
Right.
Candidly,
Right.
I hope you never do. And the best way to do that is all around what you had mentioned before, this mitigating. So oftentimes with insurance, a lot of individuals, they're going to just want to get a quote or get a bid and get the cheapest price. But for me, what I like to do is partner with them to make sure that these risks, whether it is sort of your standard slip, trip, and fall, or whether it may be something a little bit more robust around employee and development, harassment, violence, what does that mean? What does that look like?
So tell me about your process. So you meet with a business owner. What do? You assess their situation and then present products. Tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to the actual process, and I love that you call it a process because oftentimes, and in my experience, it's been products that I have worked with before in the past. So this idea of having a process is really, I think it's very similar, and especially you and I being in more healthcare adjacent communities, you think about what a doctor does. And if I go in and I see my doctor and my doctor just hands me a bunch of pills and they say, okay, here you go. Yeah. Well, you didn't hear what I had. You didn't hear what my symptoms were. You didn't hear what my issues were.
What other issues I may have.
And so for me, I really want to make sure first that I diagnose and then I assess some of the potential risks. And then we look at what process could be put in place to mitigate that risk. And then we look at insurance as the vehicle in which we mitigate that risk. And then we do ongoing implementation and monitoring of that. And so do we need to add more? Do we need to add less? Do we need to pivot? Do we need to look at some other areas in which we can reduce this risk? And for me, I want to make sure that it's this holistic diagnosis rather than just, okay, well, here's a bunch of products, here's a bunch of pills, good luck.
Right, and I may never see you again. Because you have to come back and reassess with them, because maybe they've gotten more employees, they've grown, maybe they've shrunk a little bit. You know? So there's lots of different moving parts. Maybe the laws have changed, like you said, having a safe work environment that some business owners may not even know that they have to insure against, potential issues. So you have to really be sort of on top of it with your clients to to make sure they're not overinsured, not underinsured, but they're getting the appropriate insurance that they need to protect themselves.
Absolutely, and that's why it's an ongoing dialogue. And unfortunately, being caught in what I'll call a commodity trap or a transactional trap, when people think of insurance, they'll either think they'll have negative stereotypes, and oftentimes it's just because they'll show up right before, if that, right before renewal, right? Or they may not even show up. They just may send a letter and say, okay, time to pay up. But for me, it's this ongoing conversation with business owners, making sure that we're able to, again, assess and diagnose, and then ongoing implementation throughout the year. Because for me, it's a relationship, as opposed to, okay, well, here's something, and then I'll see you next year.
Right.
Yeah.
It sounds like, the mindset you have is so appropriate for this, I think, because like you said, a lot of cases, someone just shows up when it's time for renewal, they want to collect a paycheck, and that's it. But that doesn't help the business.
Yeah.
It helps the person who's selling the insurance, but it doesn't help the business. You're looking at it as more of a relationship, because you want to have that ongoing relationship with these people. So your mindset is more about sort of a win-win situation and helping this business really stay protected, which will help them grow. And they're going to appreciate that a lot more than just an invoice in the mail.
Exactly. Well, I think of two things. I'm really excited to connect about this. When we talk about relationships, one of the phrases I really appreciate, I learned this from an individual by the name of Dr. Honeycutt, and he says that with relationships, you need to save them. So what does that require? It's safety, authenticity, vulnerability, and empathy. So what does that look like exactly? Well, I'll give you a real-life example from one of our clients. We serve healthcare communities and businesses in general, but one of the healthcare communities we served, there was a particular person, a woman who was a single mom, and she was working, and she unfortunately got injured on the job. And so what had happened was, I think about this concept of working with business owners, and as we were working with the business owners, there could have been a couple different routes that they could have gone. The first route could have been, okay, well, we don't want to get sued, so we're just going to try and sweep this under the rug, or we're going to try and just
make
it go away. Yeah, thank you. Make it go away. The second way, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, was they went, okay, safety, authenticity, vulnerability, empathy. They talked to this single mom and they went, we are so sorry that this happened to you. What are some ways in which we can serve you? And she went, I'm a single mom, and laundry, as everyone here can attest to, is such a challenge. And so what they did was, because they have a community already and there's on-site laundry, they actually had someone from the organization go to her apartment, and every week she would have this bag, or bags rather, because she had kids, of laundry. They would pick it up, they would do laundry there, and then they would bring it back to her.
Wow.
Such a small and minute difference.
Yeah.
But when you actually have this concept of that authenticity, that vulnerability, that empathy, being very relational, interestingly enough, your premium and your insurance costs, they will by design go down, because you're creating this safe work environment. And so you could have just swept it under the rug, or you can lean into it. And so that's what I love doing and working with business owners and going, okay, how can we creatively make things whole, make things right? Because that's really what my role is. My role is making sure that people stay safe at home, and then they can go home.
Right. And they can be more productive.
And they can be more
at
productive.
home and at work too.
Totally.
Yeah. So I love this. You want to talk to Raysan for more information about this, especially if you own a business and you're looking for those types of protections and the holistic approach. His information is on screen. If you're listening to this as a podcast, you can't see it on screen, but it's going to be in the caption where you found the podcast. Raysan, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing what you do to help businesses.
My joy. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
You got it.